Well, folks, I got a great opportunity now to just talk about money with Darrell McVea from Peninsula Credit Union. You know him, you've seen him around town, and we've had him on the air multiple times over his tenure at Peninsula Credit Union. Darrell, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Jeff.
It's good to see you, and it's good to talk to you about these topics because they're so important, and I think when you try to talk to folks about money, finances, their security, if you will, it can get very uncomfortable. People don't like talking about money.
That is true. That's one of the most important or intimate aspects of one's life.
Yeah.
Their relationship with their family, their spouse, and then when it comes to money, it's kind of a hush topic when you're talking with folks. But I don't necessarily want to know what your finances look like, and I definitely don't want you to know what my finances look like, whether I'm struggling, whether I'm in a much better financial position than you or maybe the neighbor. That kind of stuff is kept pretty close to the cuff. So
before we get into kind of the topics today, we're going to talk a little bit about budgeting. What does it mean really to do a budget? What are some myths about it, things like that? Have you noticed in your time in the financial world here, and I know that you interact with a lot of people, and I guess my question is, when it comes to generational sharing, like the baby boomers moving into whatever the next one is, Gen X maybe, and the millennials and things like that, have they gotten more comfortable? I feel like I read articles about where the topic, especially of salary in the workplace, is not as taboo as it once was. People are sharing that information freely, where folks who might be a little older would, like we said it just a second ago, this is off limits. This is my private. I don't want to talk to you about this at all.
Yes. Well, let's back that up a little bit. Finances, we're talking generational, and I'd like to think of the generations being, as you mentioned, you have these Gen Zs, you have folks who just coming up into the system. Back in the day, even in high school, there used to be home ec, where they taught you some of the basic functions of doing your laundry, baking some cookies. I remember when I was in high school, I made some muffins, and I thought, oh, great, good deal. Now I'm ready to go out into the world. But what was not spoken about was finances, and budgeting. I didn't know anything about that. And my folks, they just took care of things, so they never taught us about financing. So, or finances, rather. So a lot of folks that I speak with today, and it's more the younger groups, like young couples, young adults, they get a paycheck, they're able to pay for this or pay for that, but a lot of the times the future aspects of finances don't come into play.
Right.
Some folks are working at an organization that offers a retirement plan, 401k, things of that nature, and folks aren't participating in that. And I'd like to let them know at the onset that you're leaving money on the table. And when I bring it up in that sense, somebody says, money on the table? It's free money.
Yeah.
So what they were asking you to do in a 401k is to match. Well, they don't ask you to match, but they ask you to put money into this fund, your retirement fund, and they will match anywhere from 3 to 6%. And if you're not putting in 3%, or if you're not putting any money in, then you're not having any free money come back.
Yeah.
And so in explaining it as free money, and so what that means basically is that you're contributing to your retirement by putting, say, $100 in every paycheck, and there you're getting 3 or 6% of that as a match. It equates out to what? 3% of $100 is $3, 6% is $6. But that's short term. You get paid every week or every 2 weeks, or some folks get paid every month. And as you continue on, that money grows. but it's not just your money; it's the money that the organization is contributing to. So, a lot of folks don't necessarily understand that.
We talk a little bit about this and how some folks may, see their neighbors across the street, and this happens a lot on social media. You see people that are on vacation or they got a new car, and you're like, oh man, they're living the dream, the keeping up with the Joneses kind of a situation. Yet we have no idea what's going on behind the scenes when it comes to these things.
Absolutely. Those folks who are going on vacation and having the new car all the time, we don't know whether they're in debt to be able to enjoy those different types of things, we don't know whether they've made some financial commitments in the aspect of savings and in budgeting. And you mentioned budget earlier.
Yeah.
And that is, first of all, living within one's means.
Yeah, let's talk about budgeting. Why does budgeting appear to be so difficult? Why does it feel hard to do? It's kind of, to me, if I was to think about it, you're not allowing yourself, well, I've got to budget my money here. I can't spend it on something I want to spend. So now I'm kind of, I'm already starting off angry about the whole experience.
Absolutely, because to your point, budgeting does require one to be cautious, be cognizant of the money that they're putting out and the money that they're spending. The thing about it is that for a budget to work, you have to have financial goals.
Right.
You have to know what you want to achieve. And then that's where you work, that's where a budget comes into play. For example, if you want to go on vacation like the Joneses, keeping up with the Joneses, they're able to go on vacation. Well, I'm not able to go on vacation because of the amount of expenses that I incur. So in order for me to do the vacations, then I have to do something differently.
Yeah.
And doing something differently means you have to put some work in. So some folks don't want to do the work. And to have a budget, you have to figure, say, man, I want to go on this vacation. I've got credit cards, but then I have to pay all that back. But I want to go on vacation. But my vacation doesn't take place for another 5 or 6 months. So if I put a few dollars to the side, when I go on vacation, I will have had a nest egg to start that vacation with. And then when you're on that vacation, you have some of the money to spend by using your credit cards. I don't encourage you to use your credit card, but I do encourage you to save and budget for that.
So why does it feel so hard to think long-term down the road? Because you're right. If you're going to go on vacation, the odds of you leaving the next day and, I'm gone for 2 weeks, I'm on vacation, that doesn't happen.
That's not realistic.
You have to, secure the flights and get the hotels and make sure everything works out with everybody's busy schedule these days. So these events are half a year, even longer away. So what have you learned, or what can you share about the difficulty of us saving now to be, I guess, successful later?
Well, we are an immediate gratification.
Right.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're saying.
I want it now. I want it now. And that's what makes it so hard. Yeah, it does require discipline in order to see the forest for the trees. I get paid today, I'm young, I'm healthy, I want to go do this, I want to go do that. And we don't stop to think, a lot of us don't stop to think, but what about further down the line?
Right.
I can do all this stuff right now, but what if something happens? For example, that car breaks down. Are you ready to take care of that, or are you going to have to immediately pull out a credit card?
Yeah.
That's just one example. I mean, I know we're all over the place here. We're talking vacations. We're talking car maintenance. We're talking budgeting. All that comes into play for one to be successful.
One thing I see and maybe you can tell me if you notice this as well, is that people will, maybe they'll hang out with children. Their parents are retired now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's kind of the basic. The parents are retired,
Mm-hmm.
and they're always gone now. They've got their second home in Palm Springs, or they're off doing this cruise here and there. And again, it's kind of the immediacy that the child may, like, they're an adult child now, right? But the immediacy that they're like, well, wait a second, they're off having a good time. Mm-hmm. I'm not able to do this right now unless I put it on a credit card. They're not necessarily looking at it in the fact that, well, your folks may have they have likely worked another 25 or 30 years ahead. They're ahead of you that far in the game.
Absolutely.
To be able to do this, and they've made those financial decisions. So do you see that where folks are maybe interacting with different generations, and they're kind of assuming, well, I mean, if this person's able to go do this right now, then I'm going to go do this right now.
And that's again prioritizing. It's the here and now, and not taking into consideration that person who is able to go here and go there has made some financial, 9 times out of 10 have made some financial decisions that we're not privy to, and then made those sacrifices. So in the moment,
because we don't talk about it.
We don't talk about it. As I mentioned initially, my parents just took care of everything.
Yeah.
Never really told us how we could go about ensuring that tomorrow is going to be a better day for us if I plan for it. And so as soon as I worked, man, it was paycheck to paycheck, basically hand to mouth. And I was like that for a ton of years. And then I met my lovely wife.
And she put you on the track.
She put me on the track, man. And things came together. I prioritized what I wanted to do. I started making plans. And if I get a paycheck of, say, $1,000 in 1 week, and I want to go to this concert, I'm spending maybe half of that, but I've got, a little bit left over for the rest of the month. But then I'm starting from ground zero that following month.
Okay, so let's talk about that. That to me sounds like the zero. There's a couple types of budgets, right? Zero-based budget.
Zero-based budget.
There's the envelopes that people sometimes use.
Yes.
People use apps nowadays.
Yes.
There's 50, 30, 20, where some of it goes right into your needs, your rent, mortgage, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
30% goes to your needs, your wants and desires, different types of things. What have you found to be, and does it change per person, the most effective for folks to look at to start a budgeting process? Like, to me, the zero-based budgeting, I've listened to a lot of different podcasts and radio shows over the years where they talk about these different types of ways to do it.
Right.
And for me, I think, if the zero-based part of it, where at the end of the month, whatever you have left over, you put it in your savings, and then you start again with zero. Is that one, or what are the most effective ones you've found?
Well, the most effective budgets start with, first of all, you paying yourself. So immediately put X amount of dollars to the side.
Okay. And that includes too that maybe 401k. Is that part of what you're talking about, or is that in addition to?
That's in addition to.
Okay.
So your 401k is explicitly for your retirement.
Right.
So that's something that you do and don't think about it any longer. That money's pulled out of your check, and you never, ever really see that. But the money that you see is the money that we spend. And in order to formulate a solid budget is first know what your expenses are.
Sure.
What are my non-negotiable expenses? You have to pay rent.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make that car payment. You have a phone that you're paying for. And then depending on where you live, you'll have to pay water, gas, power, sewer, all those things. So those things that are a must pay is your budget. Put that on your budget sheet. Those those expenses that do not change.
What would you say the percentage of people you deal with, couples, one only knows all that information?
Well, I'd say 95% of the couples that I work with.
Yeah. There's
only one person manages to fully
understands,
fully involved and committed. And that's not a bad thing. But you have to partner together and have that same understanding and have the same dreams for your financial future. If you're butting heads, your marriage, that relationship is destined to fail.
Right.
But if there's one person doing, and that's I'm speaking now from personal experience. My wife handles all of that, and I know that. But my paycheck goes for different segments of our lifestyle.
Okay. So, but you have had a conversation, right, where you know that.
Exactly.
That's fine to do, and that's fine for one person to be the mortgage person, and then the other person is like the groceries person.
There we go.
You have to know that.
You have to
be on the same page there.
You have to be on the same page.
Okay.
So once you determine what your fixed income is, and whatever's left over is now disposable income. And that disposable, your groceries are not a fixed income, because depending on what you want to eat will determine how much you're going to spend.
Yeah.
So those are a flexible, disposable income. So your gas, it's always going to change from 1 week, 1 month to the next, depending on where you're going, right? Your entertainment, you're going to the movies this month. That does not key in with your fixed expenses. So those are all that's all disposable income.
And on your budget,
yes,
if you were to write everything down,
yes,
mortgage is X, garbage is X, and then you slowly get down to the point where all your essentials are covered.
Yes.
Now you're saying that leftover number is the disposable. That's where you can maybe treat yourself a little bit, because otherwise no one's going to stick to these things if they don't have the opportunity to have a little fun, right? They're going to be like
that is true. Yeah, you have, and that's part of paying yourself first. Yeah, so you have to be able to enjoy it, but you have to have financial goals. What do you want to accomplish? That vacation still is on the table. Everybody needs a vacation to recharge that battery.
Yeah.
So that comes out of that disposable income. So you've got your fixed expenses, and that equates, that's a very specific number. Your income, then you have that leftover, and from that leftover, you get to do other things. Vacation, but what's most important even before the vacation is being prepared for those unexpected aspects of life. The car breakdown, right? Something happens with a family member where you need to be able to help them out. And it can be as much as the loss of a job. So keep this in mind. Say you lose your job, right? The bills don't stop.
No, there's no, sorry. We'll pause these
until you get another job. Yeah, no. So you have to save for emergencies. And that's, again, paying yourself first. And the rule of thumb is to be able to save 3 months' worth of essential expenses, which means 3 months' worth of your rent or your mortgage, 3 months' worth of car payments, 3 months' worth of whatever you pay without fail every month.
So the things that won't bring you further behind if you miss them.
Exactly. And that creates a buffer for you to take a little bit of time to do what you need to do to get back into the workforce in the event you become jobless.
You've been doing this a long time, so I'm sure you've met with folks who have built who have started with zero in an emergency fund.
Yes.
And now maybe they have that 3 to 6 months. Have you what have you learned from them in their stress levels, their mindset, and things like that when they know in case something happens, we're going to be okay and better off than we were 6 months ago?
Absolutely, at least in the short term. I've seen attitudes change immensely when someone is living month to month, where they start building a little nest egg. And in the period that I'm working with someone, 50% of the time there is a hiccup in their giddy up, or they're experiencing a small challenge in life. They have to repair the car. But now they have a little bit of money that's set aside for that car payment. And so if they need to repair the car, it costs them $1,000, and all they have for that car repair is $500. All they have to do is come up with $500, which is easier to navigate than having to come up with the full $1,000 for the repair.
I've been personally in those situations, and I think most recently, and take this what you will, but we went to the vet the other day.
Oh, dude!
And so my dog is getting old, and he has whatever teeth he has left.
Yes,
they gotta go.
They gotta go.
They gotta go. And I'm like, so they said, this is going to be between $1,000 and $2,000. And I'm like, gosh, what teeth left? I mean, how is that even possible? They said, well, there's different roots and things like that. So that it is a thing, but we have, and we put aside a fair chunk of our monthly money because we sit at home most days of the week, and I cook dinner, and we read books and things like that. So there's not a lot of out expenses going on.
I get that.
So then when the vet calls and says, the dog's in pain, it's going to be $2,000. We need to take these teeth out. We can go.
Yes.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And there's no stress.
There's no, because you prepare for that. Part of the other, and I'm glad you mentioned pets. We've got a couple of dogs. We've got a Maltipoo, which is a Poodle Maltese mix, and then we have Blue, which is a French Bulldog, right?
Uh-huh.
We actually have insurance for our dogs,
right? And
it's maintenance, so they take care of the teeth, they take care of the grooming, in having that insurance is money well invested, because they have preventive care for the dog.
You see it when you take them in, and they give you your little breakdown at the end of the visit. They go, well, if you didn't have our plan, this would have been a general checkup. This would have been $750, and you're paying $50 because you need to get some ear cleaner or something like that.
And you have it on insurance. So this is also part of the plan. You have to plan for these emergency, the unexpected aspects of living life on life's terms.
And you're not. I mean, everybody's unique, whatever. But regardless, the situations aren't unique. People go through this all the time, and you can see the path diverge.
Yes.
Where the person has saved some money and is able to, without hesitation, pay for that repair, have to go out and get a new car if they have to or whatever, versus the path where someone is really living paycheck to paycheck. I have a question about this, though, because for a lot of folks, they have those fixed costs, and it gets them almost to the end of the month with zero.
Right.
So how do you help them? Where best are you able to find $5 a week, $10 a week?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because budget is kind of the big picture of what you're going to do for the month. It's an overall snapshot, but to get that, and once you've established your monthly costs, excuse me, and then finding a few extra dollars, is to track your expenses on a consistent basis. Case in point, I offer a weekly expense tracking worksheet.
Right.
So when you go to Safeway and you spend $100 at any grocery store, you get that receipt and then you break it down. Some of that is popcorn, candy, ice cream. Those are snacks. Those categorize a completely different area. So those are snacks. You see where I'm going with that? Because when you're spending your money, you look at your snacks and you say, well, do I really need those snacks? No, start cutting back there. So the other aspect of weekly expense tracking, you go to one of the coffee stands and you buy a specialty coffee. You're spending $8 or $10 on that specialty coffee. 9 times out of 10, those folks who are buying those specialty coffees will have a coffee pot sitting on their kitchen counter.
Right.
So if you spend $5 a day, 5 days a week, it's $25 at the end of the week on coffee. And you do that each week or the month, you spend $100 on the coffee, right? But you have that coffee pot at home. You go to the grocery store, you get a pound of coffee for $10.
And you can get nice coffee too.
Yeah, you can
treat yourself.
Yeah, treat yourself. And then you can go to the dairy department and you get your caramel macchiato, you get your different flavorings.
They have all that
so
creamer.
Let's say you have $10 in that pound of coffee.
Yeah.
And then $5 for that specialty oat milk, goat milk, whatever milk, right? And then the flavoring, right? So now let's say it's $20, right? 10 for the coffee, 5 for the flavor, 5 for the milk. That's $20. That's going to last you, depending on how much coffee, a minimum of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Sometime even a month, 3 weeks. So you're looking at $20 that'll carry you 2 weeks. $40 for the month as opposed to the $100. Right away, you save $60.
So why is it so hard to? And I know exactly what you're thinking. You're saying we have multiple coffee pots. Like I drink a bunch of black coffee, and then for a holiday gift, I got an espresso machine, right? And so I make my own things at home.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But if you were to, if I was to pay $5 or $10 for every one of those, it would pay for itself very quickly. People, again, have that. It's a hard thing to think of.
Yeah.
If I'm going to drop $700, let's say, on an espresso machine,
okay.
I don't know if that's right or not.
We'll just go with $700.
That's a lot of money up front. But I'm going to have this thing for a long. Sometimes and stop me if this seems weird, but I'll buy a jacket. Let's say I buy a jacket for $100.
Yes.
I wear it one time and the jacket's $100.
Okay.
I wear it 2 times and it's $50.
Yeah, there we are.
And then I divide the cost per how many times I use it. And if it gets down to like $1 a time, then I feel like I've got my money's worth out of this item.
Absolutely. And it's the same thing when we're doing our budgeting. It's setting priorities. I mean, you don't have to have a coat for 5 coats, one for each day of the week, right? One will carry you 2 or 3. And so if you think about that math, the way you put it, if you spend $100 per coat and you have one for every day of the week,
sure,
that's $500. But if you have one and you wear that 3 times out of the week, and you have another for the other 3, the numbers are kind of skewed there, but you're not spending as much, you're not investing as much money in there, and you can utilize those additional funds in a more realistic and responsible.
Yeah,
responsibility and discipline go hand in hand. So make a responsible decision for spending that money. Ask yourself, is this a want or a need?
Right. And 2, I think, I've heard, and when it comes to this, this is how I look at things a little bit too, is I have to have is a tough statement, but I have to have to be, a contributing member of society, a good bed.
Right.
Or there you go. A good bed, a good pair of shoes,
yes,
and a reliable car.
Very good.
If you spend a little more up front on those, so you're not waking up cranky because you got a bar running through the back of your bed. You may look at a bed and go, gosh, this thing costs whatever, thousands of dollars.
Yep.
But again, if you sleep on it every night for a third of the day,
bingo, yes.
It helps, or your shoes doesn't hurt your back, so then all of a sudden you're at the doctor or the chiropractor.
These are investments with money well spent. Absolutely. Your health is very important.
Yeah.
So you have to, maintain good health. And if you do the physical aspect, make the physical aspect of your life a priority, and start making the financial aspect of your life a priority, and keep in mind your goals, focus on those goals, you're more apt to stick with a program.
Talk to me a little bit about somebody who's going to start their budget. They make it a week, a month, and they have stuck to it. That's awesome. Way to go. You need to be able to reward yourself a little.
Absolutely. And that comes from your financial goals. You say, these are going to be my goals. I'm going to work within this budget. And then it's a success. So you celebrate your successes. And being able to celebrate that success is a motivation to stick with it.
Yeah.
You haven't been saving money, but now you've saved. You've never saved before, but now in this 1 month you saved $100. You look at that as a definite win, because it is, because you hadn't before and now you're doing that, and so you're motivating. You're saying, and look, I'm able to do this. I'm able to do this, and I'm thinking about it. So it's purpose-driven success.
What do you know, or what can you share about people who didn't care to do this, and then they kind of almost go the complete opposite? They go from paycheck to paycheck out of necessity, and then they've carved out their $5 or $10 a week that they're saving, and then all of a sudden it almost becomes like a game to them, and they're like, I don't know, I just checked my bank account and I've never had more in my savings account in my life. I don't even want to touch. It's like, if I have cash in my pocket, if I have a large bill, I don't want to break the bill, because then it's all gone.
Yes.
No matter what.
I have seen that. You're right.
And you go, I have never saved this much in my life. This is amazing.
Yes.
And then two, I've heard stories where people make these huge changes and they're so proud of themselves, and then they share it with their friends and their peer groups, and then all of a sudden the peer group looks at them differently. They're like, you kind of now have a sure footing.
Yes.
You have that emergency fund. You have the option to go, well, I'm going to take a vacation. Oh, this weekend, there's not much on the schedule. Let's go to the coast or something like that. And then your friends look at you different. How do you... I guess that kind of goes back to the first thing we talked about, where, you don't really talk about finances a lot, but if you explain your situation, like I get excited when I talk to people about how much we're saving, or the fact that, outside of our mortgage, my family, we don't have any debt.
Right.
We've worked really hard to do this, and then we go and, buy something because why not? Well, we have that extra fun money.
Yes, well, I have seen that where someone has done exceptionally well in following their program, so to speak.
Yeah.
Have worked within a budget and are realizing we have this extra money. Well, at that point, you are now an example for your friends and family members. And it's important that we share our successes. It's all about relationships. It is important that we share our successes. So if you're starting to move forward financially, and there's a friend or family who is near and dear to your heart, and you can see they're struggling, and you have not shared your success story, then shame on you.
Because, again, it's more of what we were talking about, how, boy, it looks like they're just doing all the right things. They're hitting all the right buttons, the check boxes. They don't, again, understand the beans and rice and beans kind of
Exactly.
what you've done to
Yeah.
secure a future that is more comfortable.
That is true, and they may not, and they more than likely won't come and share that with you. But you have if you have a relationship with them, what's to prevent you from going over and saying, "I notice you go on vacation fairly regular. How do you make that happen?"
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to ask.
You mentioned the worksheet.
Yes.
Where and how can people find you here at Peninsula to go over these things? I know sometimes you're at the library, but do you have to make an appointment, or what's the story?
Well, I'm out and about in the community. Yeah. I'm at the, to your point, the library, at the YMCA, the Youth Connection, the Mason County Senior Activity Center, and I host workshops at some of the local 501c3 organizations, Crossroads Housing, Turning Point Survival Advocacy. And you can see me about town. And even at the library, I've got my business cards there. So you can grab a business card there. I'm at, again, the YMCA. So the places I mentioned all have my business card. But if you're listening to this podcast or this interview, you can reach me at DMCVEA, D McVea, at pcfcu.org, or you can call the branch here in Shelton, 360-426-1601, and ask to speak to Darrell.
Yeah.
We'll connect that way, or shoot me an email. I gave you my email address. Once again, dmcvea at pcfcu.org. Shoot me an email and say, "Hey, Darrell, I saw you here, or I heard you here. I'm interested in knowing a little bit more about what you do."
And you are, this is all sensitive information. You don't go share it with anybody. You don't use it. It's you're utilizing the skills you have here and the job you have here to help people. That's it.
Absolutely. I cover a smorgasbord of financial topics: budgeting, savings, credit building, credit repair, debt consolidation, loans, so I cover a number of different topics. And it is, again, very relational. It's one-on-one. And yeah, I don't share anybody's information.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't matter. It's again, it's very relational, and it is the one-on-one, and I don't have to go any further than that.
Yeah, no, I know that. I know this. I just want to make sure people feel at ease to, again, be able to broach this subject with you.
Absolutely.
And help them get on their path, because I have listened over the years to different shows and heard stories of people that have gotten themselves out of debt through just hard work, which can be fun work too, because you're able to see the fruits of your labor.
Exactly that.
Coming up quick. You pay off that one debt, and all of a sudden you're like, well, let's see where we can go from here.
And I meet people in all types of financial standing. Some folks are just doing okay, but want to find devise strategies to improve their financial position. Yeah. There are some folks who are in collections by thousands of dollars. And one of the things we don't recognize is that the collection agencies will buy that debt for 5 to 10 cents on the dollar. So if you're in collections and a collection agency is calling you and say, "Hey, you owe $1,000," well, yeah, you owed that $1,000 to a financial institution. They've written that off and sold that debt to a collection agency at 5 cents on the dollar. So if you owed $1,000, this collection agency is going to spend $50 to get that $1,000 debt, and then they want to collect that money from you. You're not entitled to give them that whole to pay that back. You can talk to them and say, "Hey, I know you spent 5 or 10 cents per dollar.
Yeah.
You want $1,000 from me? I'll give you $250 and we'll call it good."
Well, this sounds like it's a whole nother conversation we should have, because that sounds fascinating to me on how you can negotiate things. That's one of the topics I hear on your Money Minutes that we have on KMAS Radio, in addition to a whole host of others. So that is a good one.
Yes.
Also, just renegotiating different fees and rates and insurances and this plan and that plan. We got
that's
things to talk about here.
Exactly, and that's with whomever you owe money with. If it's a credit card and you're in good standings, why can't you call and ask? Because you either way, you'll come away no worse off.
Yeah.
But you could come away better off if you asked.
Yeah. Doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, just learn to ask.
Darrell McVea, your title here?
Community Financial Educator.
And that's what you do.
And I provide these services free of charge.
Do you have to be a member?
You don't have to be a member of Peninsula Credit Union to utilize the services that I provide.
That's great.
Yeah, I've got a great passion in being able to help someone change their financial position in life. And I'm excited about it, even more so than the individuals I'm working with.
I bet.
But yeah, I'm excited about it.
There's got to be a day where the light switches, and from you, they're the ones who then are like, this is actually working.
Absolutely. I'd say that 90% of the people that I work with are ready to do the work.
Yeah.
And once you do the work, are very successful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And yeah, it's like eating an elephant, bite-sized pieces, one day at a time. So you're not going to change your financial position overnight. But a little bit of hard work, self-discipline, and focus, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Darrell McVea, it's always good to see you and talk with you.
Pleasure's mine.
And I
Jeff.
can't wait to delve into more of these topics with you.
Absolutely. I look forward to it as well.